Hello Moonbebes. Terribly sorry for being so extremely late getting to this. My name is Umu, I'm a React channel creator, and haha! Finally! We are reacting to Monsta X's Fantasia. Fantasia! Fantastic. Fantastic Fantasia. And yeah, my excuses is that this came out around the time where I was super busy, and then once I was less busy, I wanted to react to it with a certain reactor, and then they never gave me their availability, and so then I waited, and they still didn't give me their availability, and then I waited even longer, and they didn't give me their availability, so I was just like, okay, we'll just try someone else. And thankfully, Daniel was free this week, so he'll be joining me on this reaction.
Hi, my name is Daniel. I am one of the reactors for the Classical Musicians React series.
It's been a long day, aka it is only like 2 p.m. But I'm ready to be fueled with energy.
3, 2, 1. Whoa, it's like Lady Gaga vibes.
Oh, it's gone. Oh. I love how they get, oh, energy up, and then we go halftime. Yeah. Those hits were so satisfying in the last section. Nice chromatics in the piano line, I think it is. Okay.
Oh. It's just like switching modes, like major and the minor. And there's like this call and response. It's so high pace. And not just like rhythmically, like with this musical material.
Pedal to the metal. It's nice to have him the first half of the pre-chorus, because he has a little bit of a darker timbre, and then we're back to high to bring us back into like this spoken, slightly less hype than at the end of the pre-chorus, just so we can have the explosion of energy in the second half of the chorus. But I guess we're going bridge here.
Wow. That harmony was like kind of killer. It's like this build up.
Ooh, yeah, I think it switches to major Phrygian in this section. It gives me goosebumps whenever they, ooh, whoa, it gives me goosebumps. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Wow. You know, a lot of songs start off with 1, 2, 3, but Monsta X, they be ending with 1, 2, 3. That's interesting. So the home note of this song is what drones at the very bottom during most of the chorus, was just the. So whenever we land on this, it's very comforting. There's no tension or anything. And so I'm going back and I'm singing this note while we hit the post-chorus so I can see what mode it goes into. Whoa. So that's just a 5th. 4, 1, 2, 3. Whoa, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it goes 1, 5, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Lowered 6. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, lowered 7. So we went into harmonic minor. Woo! Not Phrygian. Not Phrygian.
Wow. That's really impressive. Yeah, there's just so much going on. Yeah. I really like this.
I want to go back and compare IM and Joohan's rap verses, because both of them were halftime, so they use similar like rap, not necessarily trope, I guess it's kind of like a trope, is going halftime and being really sparse and switching to mostly a percussive background, but they did it in different ways. So let's start with like the and then taking everything out, just to emphasize the last bit of the rap, and then the hits lining up with the rap rhythms. And then let's move to I am 3, 2, 1, 1, 11. I'm good, huh? So we used different percussion this time around. But we... And then we introduced like some distant synth towards the end to help transition back into the melodic pre-chorus, which was also nice because at the end of the first post-chorus, IM had a line that led into the rap. So the transitions were really, really smooth in this song.
I think you should go first.
So just to like summarize my thoughts, like I went back in to listen to a few moments, and what I find interesting about this song is that when you start listening to it, they're like, okay, yeah, this sounds like Monsta X, and it sounds like what they're mostly known for, which is like this really big, powerful, edgy, grungy sound with like a lot of rap and some powerful vocals in the pre-chorus, right? So I was really surprised almost when we reached the chorus, and it was so much more sparse than I thought, and it had a spoken part. Right? Because, you know, shoot out is like, shoot out, shoot out, shoot out. And then with follow, it's like, fa-la-la-lo, fa-la-la-lo, fa. It's like so busy. And this was so incredibly sparse compared to that, because we had a, you know, I think it's like, it still felt pretty large, but it was sparse at the same time. So I was almost confused, but intrigued at the same, like, right. All at once.
I thought that this was really interesting. And I think perhaps the sparseness compared to the other music videos that Monsta X has released probably has to do with the content material, which this is like this is a Fantasia, this is a fantasy. You see throughout, it's like, you know, when you think of fantasy, also, and especially in the way that they've deployed it, like they're almost deploying a Western consciousness to me, because it seems like they're relying on somewhat Orientalist perspectives. Also, this idea of like the Wild West, and like this idea of fantasy and exploration and adventure, and then also like the promise of treasure. You know, like gold is used so frequently in this music video. So, you know, when you think of like, we're going on an adventure, you're not thinking like, you know, you're thinking like, it's more like, you know, it's like, it's more
so
like
dying from your,
yeah, it's like, you know, and like perhaps the other songs, like, the content of those songs, perhaps like it's more, it's like it's adequate for that, for the other material, the other themes that they're going for. But I think for Fantasia, it's very specific about what kinds of feelings and ideas and mindsets they're trying to evoke, and I think that is particularly prevalent in the way that they switch off through modes, and you know, the modes that kind of signal, even if it's not overtly so, but it's like the exotic modes, right?
But 5 major 3 4 minor normal 4,
that might be minor 4,
6 minor 6 minor 7. I think I went up to 7, like a lowered 7 and then 1. That was the line.
So it is they use a major mode in a way that's like explicitly major 3.
Okay, so yeah, they moved to harmonic minor, but with modal mixture major 3.
So yeah, that was I think what made me realize that they're oscillating between different modes, because while they're playing that, and you know that segment is major, the Fantasia is explicitly minor. So when you juxtapose and you interweave those things, you're clashing, or you're interweaving between different modalities. Obviously, with pop songs, as we know, like the keys aren't necessarily they're not always
set
defined.
in stone.
Yeah, like it switches through to like get you, I guess, like perhaps the maximum exposure of flavor, you know, like a Doritos bag or something. I don't know. It was so airtight. Like there were so many different like musical material and themes, you know, like Fantasia, right? And then right? And it's like those are two distinct themes, and there was like another, and the way that they interwove it, there was no room for air between any of them. It was just so tight. And I think that because of that intensity created from that air tightness of like the interweaving, it just created this like really successful musical drive. It's like a classic.
I think you summed up pretty much what I was going to say too. It's just that energy because of constantly interweaving different sounds and going through different modes and rhythms. And yeah, it is the pop form of verse, or well, I guess intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, post-chorus, second verse. But in K-pop, second verse is like, it's almost supposed to be different than the first verse. So we've got the variation on the first verse, and then pre-chorus, chorus, and then it goes into the bridge, which is just like a continuation of the post-chorus except halftime, and then like adding in some new instrumental. Like that was awesome. I love the bridge. I love the change of the post-chorus, and then, you know, just like having the dance break brings so much energy, and it really does look like they're, you know, preparing for a fight, and like that thing that they do, you know, that thing, and it interweaves really well.
Yeah, 100% agree with everything that you said, and I think you pulled out some like really interesting things that this music video, or like the sound that it creates, like a lot of these aspects that are, you know, perhaps overlooked, but are in fact integral to, you know, its execution, the way that you're like, this feels so good, and it's like, what is it that makes it feel so good? It makes me feel so good. What I really found interesting right off the bat was, I think, starting from the 13th second, 13, there's a guy, he's holding like the collar for these black jaguars, and his outfit triggered in just the way that it's styled. It's almost genderqueer to me. Even though he's in like a masculine sort of setting, the walls behind him, the door, the cuts. But I think that his outfit, it's kind of, to me, it feels genderqueer in the way that like, it's not, I feel like the way how it's like, it drapes on his torso, yet leaves room in the inside. It just feels like that's sort of the kind of outfit that's considered within like the female fashion like vision. I don't know, like image. Like to me, that doesn't necessarily strike a masculine cut of clothing. Because when you think of like perhaps at the extreme end, when you look at like militaristic clothing of men.
Also, did you mean gender fluid or gender queer?
I think it can be both. Gender queer in the sense that it makes you question the gender of the outfit, and also of the wearer, and also gender fluid, because it's like they're all, through the gender queering, they're making you question like, oh, like this could also be considered male.
That's cool.
You know, like I think in Korea, the notion of gender is very much strict. It's I don't like, you know, it's like you're a female or you're a male, and like. And, you know, it's like, I think it's a lot of issue for a lot of people who are queer or who like transgender or are genderqueer. Yeah, it just makes me think like, oh, wow, like there's just so many different ways a man can dress himself up, because these people are playing men, you know, or at least they're signaling that they are men. They're not like, we're here to genderqueer. Like, I don't think that's their intention. I think they're very much like, we're here to signal that we are like tough men going out on a journey to discover and to indulge ourselves in fantasy. But at the same time, it's just like, wow, like I guess like perhaps the expression of gender or maleness in Korean culture is just reminds me, it's like, it's so different. Even if they are like, this is what it means to be a man, and they have strict boundaries of maleness and the presentation of maleness, the performance of maleness. But within this context, it kind of strikes me as like, this person seems to be going out on the edges, or at least he's going out on my edges. Does it make sense? Or
Yeah.
I guess my society's edges.
Wow. Yeah, I never think of anything that way, but thanks for pointing that out. That's really cool.
But in any case, I think it's successful, like really just like really successful song to me.
Yay! All right, yeah, thanks for joining us on this journey, everyone. Really curious about your guys' thoughts on this song and concept and, you know, aesthetics and meaning and everything. So please leave a comment and I'd love to read what you guys say. And thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.